What's up YouTube, my name is Adrian and welcome to Game Reviews Malaysia, my channel where you'll find game reviews, previews, and top 10 lists with new videos uploaded every week. This week's review features an MMORPG called Twin Saga, and believe it or not, it's my first ever Asian MMO that I've ever played and reviewed. I'm a long-time MMO player, but Asian MMOs has never really interested me, not until recently at least. Being a freelance game review writer, reviewing Twin Saga was part of my assignment, so I decided to make a video review for the channel as well, and I did find some things I enjoyed and some things I didn't. So sit back and relax, because this is the longest review I've done so far, an MMO edition. So what is Twin Saga all about? Twin Saga is a high fantasy MMORPG that draws plenty of inspiration in terms of gameplay and looks from popular Asian titles, and it does look like the bastard child of Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts with a bunch of anime thrown in together. Developed by X Legends in Taiwan, the game is free to play and is currently in open beta to test the North American servers. It's also a story-driven MMO, and the plot centers around two demigod sisters who are at war with each other, with one trying to destroy humanity and the other trying to save it. It's no surprise which side you will be on, and as the predictable chosen one, your adventure starts after the tutorial, and as far as MMO progression goes, it's now up to you to uncover the plot by advancing Twin Saga's main story quest chain. Now before we get into the good stuff, here's an overview of what Twin Saga offers MMO players. On the PvE front, the real meat and potatoes of the game is of course the main story. Players must progress the story arc in order to bag large sums of XP and new gear. More gameplay will also become unlocked after completing certain quests within the main story arc, including new classes and companions, so it's vital that players pay more attention to the story quests. The main narrative is pretty well presented, and often the game uses a mix of animated dialogue and cinematic cutscenes to good effect. Besides the main story arc, there are optional daily hidden quests and achievements littered throughout the world that players can complete for side income of gold and XP. There are 10 different level gated regions to quest through, and the maps are all small in size and linear in progression, but at least the environments are unique, as are the monsters, world bosses, and local populace. Each region comes with its own dungeon, and because the dungeons are tied to the main story arc, they can be completed solo or with a full 5-player group on normal or hard difficulty for more XP and better loot drops. Now, speaking of classes, Twin Saga features 4 classes that you can pick right off the bat, with an additional 6 to be unlocked from the main story arc. It's interesting that some of the more popular class archetypes in the genre, such as the Paladin and the Rogue class, need to be unlocked, so if you want to play those, you can't buy them using real money and will have to put some questing effort in to get them. The rest of the classes pretty much make up the classic trinity. There's mages, clerics, and occultists, warriors, hunters, and gunslingers, and then there's the dragon knights, rogues, and the paladins. Classes are called professions in the game, and each profession has a spec tree that players will spend points in every time they gain a profession point through leveling. The spec tree allows players to focus on one of 2 roles, such as more defense for tanking or more damage for DPS. What's cool about the class mechanics in Twin Saga is that you can switch between any of the classes on the fly without any restrictions, but more on that later. Now moving on to the combat, it's really nothing revolutionary, and it will be really familiar to everyone who has ever played an MMO. It's basically action-based combat with tab targeting, and your class skills will be fired off from up to 3 quick bars with individual cooldowns. Skills and abilities are unique to each class and are divided into builders and spenders. Builder skills will add skill points to the SP bar, and once maxed, players can press the F key to unleash their class's ultimate ability, and the cinematic execution is pretty cool to watch, as every class's ultimate ability is different, and every enemy trash mob gets annihilated in creative and different styles too. To round up the PvE gameplay, Twin Saga also offers a lot of staple MMO activities such as player housing and crafting. Crafting opens up more branching activities like fishing and gathering in order to get the materials. There's also a cosmetic system with dyeable outfits, the Senshi system, which is basically a companion system that allows you to collect NPC characters that will fight alongside you in combat, and finally there's Astral Adventures, which is a series of daily animated dialogue quests that players can farm 10 times a day for title rewards and bonus XP. Whew, that's quite a lot to process, so I hope you're still with me here. For PvP in Twin Saga, players can unlock Battlegrounds and Arena PvP at level 40, and to participate in them, players will have to check the daily server schedules to see which Battlegrounds are available before signing up to join them. There are options to join a class-only specific Battleground or a 3-a-side arena match, and the objective is to rack up more points than the opposition team to win the match. Besides that, there isn't any open world PvP, but players can duel with each other if they choose to. Now that I've given you a very detailed and hopefully not dry overview, let's take a look at the pros and cons of Twin Saga, and the final verdict on whether or not this free-to-play Asian MMO is worth playing. The pros. Pro number 1, classes and combat. In my 4 to 5 days of playing Twin Saga, the best part about leveling through the game for me was playing the different classes. My favorite is definitely the Paladin class, as it reminds me of the Captain class in Lord of the Rings Online, which I absolutely love. Sure, Twin Saga's classes might be generic with cookie cutter builds, but you can mitigate that feeling thanks to the ability to switch classes instantly. Switching classes can be done through the UI, and it takes only a click of a button to swap to another class without restriction or cost, provided you're not in combat. I think it's a great mechanic that gets rid of the need to create alts, and it's damn handy when you need to fill up pug or guild groups for dungeons or PvE. The combat also adds to the fun of playing these classes, due to being action-based, which makes it fast-paced and sometimes strategic, as using certain skills and abilities in certain order will yield buffs and benefits during the fight. More class skills will be unlocked the higher your level, so combat can feel like you're just button mashing in the earlier levels with just 3 or 4 main skills. It definitely gets better in time, and I love the fact that whichever class you play, there's always 2 dedicated skill slots that allow you to pick skills from the pool of classes you have, so you're free to mix and match your builds to some extent. Pro number 2. Player convenience. I think it's safe to assume that Twin Saga heavily prioritizes player convenience, which is, in my opinion, a good thing. You'll definitely notice how some aspects of gameplay have been deliberately dumbed down and others handed to you on a silver platter. For instance, the game has an automatic potion consumer, and you can set it to use a potion when your health reaches a certain percentage. You can also check your mail from anywhere in the world without needing to visit a mailbox, which is great for a change. The biggest shock discovery for me was how the game ushers you on in questing. While completing quests, players can see the sparkly streak on the ground that leads to the objective, which to be fair is quite common. If that wasn't enough, you can also click the objective on the quest log, and remarkably, the game goes into autopilot mode. Your character gets on a mount and rides off towards the objective without you having to do a thing. You can even click it to automatically complete fetch quest objectives such as picking up items or talking to NPCs, and the only thing it won't do is combat, as it will lead you to the trash mob and hand over the wheels to you. This was an MMO culture shock for me, and it's like nothing I've ever seen in any of the Western MMOs that I play. MMO purists will no doubt hate the idea, but strangely enough, I like that the game allows me to be lazy. It's like Twin Saga wants to combat the perception that Asian MMOs are grindy as hell by introducing some player conveniences to soften that perception. Finally, there's player housing. More accurately, mobile player housing. Once you hit level 20, players are given a Terra Cottage, which is a mobile player house that you can use as a mount on the landscape. The interior has 3 different levels to cater to 3 different things. There's the main hall where you can place companions, decorations, and invite your guildies and friends over to party. On top of that, the other 2 levels are the garden to harvest crops for crafting, and the alchemy lab to brew potions and other consumables, all within your house that moves. Talk about convenience. Pro number 3, lighthearted and accessible. Another thing I really liked about Twin Saga is the game's attitude in general, and the vibe it gives off when playing it. It's lighthearted and very much reminiscent of games like Ragnarok. It doesn't take itself too seriously either, and it shows in the writing for both quest dialogues and in the characters. It's fun and funny at times, but that could be a hit or miss with players. I'll elaborate more on that later. I found it extremely easy to jump right in and acclimatize myself with the world, the characters, and the story without it being forced on me, like how some AAA MMOs do. The game definitely grows on you the more you play it. Twin Saga is also very accessible to its credit. The game size is roughly 6 gigs, which is kinda compact for an MMO, and the loading screens when logging in or entering zones are really quick. Pro number 4, presentation. The one thing I've always disliked about Asian MMOs is how the art style and design of the world and characters always look too cartoony, and I thought that kinda negatively impacts the level of immersion. Having played Twin Saga now, I guess I can come to terms with how attractive everything looks, as the art style and design complements the story that Twin Saga is trying to tell. It's an easygoing narrative that needs to look lighthearted, and I feel like they've managed to pull it off. I've actually grown to like my anime style character, and have no problems calling myself cute. I mean, look at me. The mighty Heffelheim. Also, I could swear my sword looks like a weapon from Halo. Also, huge kudos to the cinematic cutscenes in the game. For a free-to-play MMO, the level of detail and atmosphere the cutscenes provide is quite special, and they do add to the overall immersion of the narrative, even when the story sometimes comes up short. The cons. Con number 1, questing dialogues. If I could sum up Twin Saga's entire story arc in one word, it would be cringy. The narrative is simple enough to follow as it's logical, but the execution of the narrative and how it's articulated to the players is a fucking nightmare. While doing the main quests, every NPC involved almost always has something to say, and the subsequent dialogue is ineffective at best. There's loads of rubbish dialogue, and you'll have to click the dialogue panel multiple times, reading useless filler chatter in between just to get to the bottom line. I found myself not bothering at all and just skipping through all the dialogues until I reached the end, where a summary is provided just before accepting or turning in a quest. The dialogues themselves are really pretty bad, filled with sexual innuendos and dry humor that really tries too hard, only to crash and burn. Con number 2. Frustrating PvP. For PvPers looking for something in Twin Saga, my advice is to stay away and look elsewhere. It's ridiculously frustrating, beginning with only being able to access PvP battlegrounds and arenas at level 40. You can get to level 40 pretty quick, as XP is easy to get if you just follow the main quest, but why level gate the PvP? If the answer is to keep out the noobs for ruining matches, then the lack of a level boost system doesn't help either. When you finally get to level 40 and participate in the arena PvP, your group makeup will consist of players between 40 and 65, so it's not properly balanced either way, often making matches one-sided and a zergfest. It would make things much better for everyone if players can be automatically scaled to level 65 for PvP, and get rid of that silly level gate if you want PvPers to take this game seriously. It's a real shame considering that the pace of the combat has so much potential to make PvP fun. Con number 3. Unsubstantial PvE. The main quest in Twin Saga more than offered enough in terms of PvE progression, as the XP rewards are pretty significant. But for players looking for more variety, the other options are painfully disappointing. Hidden quests and side missions are arbitrary and incredibly grindy, consisting of fetch quests and kill X amount of monster quests. It's almost insulting because the useless dialogues in between only makes matters worse. Group content is also fairly limited to dungeons, and while the general combat and boss fights are neat, the duration to clear a dungeon is really short and often left me wanting to see more. If PvP isn't your game's flag bearer, then PvE dungeons should be, but it seems that Twin Saga half-assed both and players are left with little to do, especially in the later levels, to keep them satisfied. Our verdict. Overall, I will say that I appreciated my time playing Twin Saga. It has definitely broadened my MMO horizon and showed me things I never knew I wanted in my MMOs, like more power to the player when it comes to convenience, the fun combat due to being able to switch to any class I wanted to, and even having a moving house that has multiple practical uses. The game has great ideas that feel fresh for the MMO genre, but it severely needs some mechanics that other successful games uses, like level scaling for zones and PvP, plus offering more substantial endgame content to reduce the boring grind that eventually rears its head. But where Twin Saga shines is on the aesthetic side of things. It's a great looking MMO and it feels like a game that I can just jump into whenever I want for a few hours of lazy fun at the cost of absolutely nothing. But it's definitely not what I would consider to be my main MMO game. Twin Saga gets a score of 6 out of 10. And that concludes the first ever MMO review on my channel, and I promise more will come. This review took a lot of time and effort to put together, so if you enjoyed the content, please leave a thumbs up and any feedback you'd like to share. Before I go, I'd love to hear from you. What's your favorite Asian MMO? A lot of people have already spoken about Black Desert Online and I've yet to play it due to region restriction, but I'd like to hear what other Asian MMOs are worth playing out there, so leave them in the comments below. Once again, my name is Adrian from Game Reviews Malaysia, and if you haven't done so already, do subscribe to my channel for more game reviews, and I thank you for watching.